The following tutorial is brought to you by WholeLoops.com.
It's production time. I'm Reid, Stefan, Realist Puppet in the game. Today, I've got the exclusive Ozone Master Sauce tutorial for those who purchased the preset at WholeLoops.com. And today, we're going to be mastering 3 different songs using the standalone version of Ozone 8 and the Ozone Master Sauce preset. So let's jump right into the first example. I'm going to open up Ozone, the standalone application. I really enjoy the focused mastering experience of doing this instead of throwing the plugin at the bottom of the DAW. Even though the sound quality is exactly the same, there's something about focusing on your mastering in a situation like this rather than trying to mix and master at the same time that I think just leaves you with a better master. So let's start out with the first song. And it's a pop track called Get My Hands on You, and let's open up Ozone Master Sauce. And to get this preset to appear in this window of your Ozone, all you got to do is go to the downloaded file that came with your purchase, copy it, go to your computer's documents, Ozone 8 presets, global presets, and paste it out here somewhere in this global presets folder. Mine's right here. And then the next time you open Ozone, you'll see it right here. And when you go to open it, if you get a error that says something about unreadable or whatever, it's because you're not using Ozone 8.02 or later. That's the version that I made this preset with. So if you're on 8.0 or 8.01, just log into your iZotope account, update your software, and the preset will work no problem. So let's jump into the preset. So we loaded up Ozone Master Sauce. Let's take a listen to what it does right off the bat. And let's also play it bypassed first. It's without the mastering. All right, now we're gonna turn it on.
I think that you're trouble, the way that you control the things I do.
Very important. Take notice that the loudest parts still don't hit clipping or hit the top. That means that you have correctly gain staged your mix where you're not doing any clipping when you export it or anything of the sort. You're safely beneath the ceiling, and that will keep your signal nice and round and dynamic. You don't have to worry about being 6 beneath there or 3 beneath there. As long as you are completely beneath there the whole song, you could just turn it down and make it 6 beneath there just by doing this instead if you wanted to do that in your mix phase. But we could just leave this right here or even at minus 0.1 just for fun. So let's go ahead into the equalizer. This is set up in mid-side mode. And we have the brick wall roll off on the top and the bottom to completely get rid of everything that you don't hear. And then some little spikes right after it to help make up for the apparent loss that you get from the roll off. So let's start out by sliding around and finding the perfect spot to low cut this. Let's go to somewhere a little bit in from the beginning.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my.
And now for this little low end spike, 50 hertz has always been the absolute sauce for me, but feel free to slide it around and find your kick drum. That's always what I'm looking for when I move this thing around.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me.
I always find my kick drum somewhere around 50. So now we have some points here that are all in a pretty neutral position, but generally create a scoop. And then they get bright around here at like 2K.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen.
I like pushing it all the way up and sliding it around. It's like sweeping the frequencies to find what you want to boost.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the morning. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me.
Now let's do our high shelf
Up to me,
and our high cut.
up to me, you would stay to the morning. We would
16 is a good place to high cut your top end, and then just boost up around 8K to make up for what you kind of feel like you lost. Now let's go over to the sides. Here we have a less steep roll off.
up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the morning.
And I want to do a boost in the lower mid, so maybe around 400 or 500.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the morning. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me.
Boom. I always find that pocket by pushing the ceiling and then bringing it back down. And then we have a big push here on the
Up
sides.
to me, if it were up to me.
And you might not want to high cut it so much on the sides because this is where you want a lot of your high frequency detail to lie. So maybe like 17 on the
Up
sides.
to me, if it were up to me, you would stay.
And another nice high shelf. And that's what we got going on here in our EQ. I found these to consistently be the most useful settings. So let's just turn this thing on and off to make sure we like what we're doing.
Up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the morning.
Boom.
We would get
I like
no
it.
sleep.
Let's move over to our exciter and let's go to a different part of the song too.
Tell me what you did to my head, 'cause I can't wait to get my hands on you.
Now this is another mid-side process. I've already picked my favorite flavors of distortion for these bands. And again, I like to push things all the way up just to hear what I'm doing and then dial it back down. And for these, I often use percents like below 10%. Sometimes even just a half a percent or 0.01% will make a wonderful addition to your mix, especially if there's a lot of distortion there already in it. So let's just tweak this thing around a little bit and see what we get. So we've got the mids selected here. This is a mid-side exciter that I got set up.
Just like a wildfire, the way you get so high when I say your name, oh, the passion in your eyes.
Awesome. Let's check out the sides now. And I really don't touch the exciters on the mids and lows here for the sides because I want those to really reign supreme in the mids. So I would rather leave those alone. So that's how I'm going to do here on the exciter. Let's move on to the imager and move to a new part of the song. So here we've got the spectrum split up into 3 bands instead of 4. And to do that, all I did was right click on here and say remove band, and that 4th band that's there by default, if you don't have this preset open, disappears. And you now have lows, mids, and highs. And I just slightly tapped the mids ever so slightly wider, just enough to take a little bit more clarity for the kick and vocal. Let's go back here.
You would stay to the morning, we would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would stay to the morning, we would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen. Tell me what you did to my head, 'cause I can't.
I I don't really do too extreme stuff with this because I find it sounds really messy really quickly, but some magic happens when you just tap this like less than 1% that I really like. So that's going to stay on. Let's move over to the dynamics. Instead of doing mid-side, this one's just some stereo, classic multi-band compression. And what I really mess with when I mess with this is the slider on parallel. And as you could see, as we go up, we're getting more compression. And that's going to give you a brighter mix, or we could do less on the high end and do more of a mid-focused mix. It depends what you want to add to the song.
You would stay to the moment. You would stay to the moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen. Tell me what you
The tiny little bit of compression here on the lower mids really helps the kick reign supreme. So I love adding a lot of parallel compression in this band.
would stay to the moment. We would get
But if you push it all the way, you kind of lose the top thump of your kick. So maybe somewhere about halfway for this band.
You would stay to the moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me, if it were up to me.
I'm not really a huge fan of compressing your low end, so this is one I would just bypass by sending this to dry. But creating somewhat of a slope heading upwards with these, it tends to be what I do. Let's try not 100% on this. Let's also go to the end.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen.
Let's move on to the vintage limiter. Now, the main purpose of this limiter is to take the load off of the maximizer. I don't do huge adjustments with this. Let's see what's going on.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen. Tell me what you
Man, when you hit this thing right, the knock that it makes when you use these things together is spectacular. But if you're mixing over something that has a heavily limited beat already in the mix, you might not be able to use this one. But for this one, it works perfectly because I know that I bounced it out very dynamic.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen.
And then finally, we have our maximizer. And 90% of the time, modern sounds the best out of all these options. If your mix is really low and heavy and you need a limiter to make it brighter, you could use this option, but usually I'm going for the roundness, so I choose modern.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen. Tell me what you did.
So now we're able to hit the limiter quite heavily. 1.5 decibels of gain reduction, or of threshold here, is quite a bit, but we can get away with it because the vintage limiter is keeping the signal safe leading into this.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen.
And since this is a slow tempo, we can definitely push the character up on this speed.
If it were up to me, you would be the only one I call my queen.
And finally, the last thing you always want to enable when you're mastering is dither. And for some reason, Ozone presets don't save dither settings as a part of the preset. I'm not sure why, or else this would just come on for you, because when you are mastering, dither makes a huge difference. Let's play it and take a listen.
If it were up to me, you would be the
And then
only
without it,
one I call my queen.
let's listen to the hook.
Tell me what you did to my head,
And now on.
'cause I can't wait to get my hands on you.
Let's go over here to a part that is not a complete robot voice.
Me, if it were up to me, you would stay to
And
the
without it.
moment. We would get no sleep. If it were up to me.
The little boost that you get in the center and in the high end when you turn dither on is spectacular. What's going on is essentially a noise that gets added to the signal that makes it brighter, sounds slightly louder, and also when you convert your wave to your MP3, maintain its high-end clarity. So Dither is an absolute major key when you're mastering. Always use dither. Unless you're using a limiter that's not the final limiter, use dither. And that's it for this song. If I'm ready to export this one, I would just go here, File, Export Audio File, and call it your mastered WAV file, but we could just jump straight into the next one. Now we've got a pop track called Mine, and I'm gonna drop it on here and open up Ozone Master Sauce. Actually, like always, let's listen to it bypassed first.
Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under.
Sauced up.
And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same.
So instead of walking through each time, I'm just gonna go ahead and grab this and do what I do since I explained it as I went last time, just so you could see how I would kind of master on the fly, because that's really what this preset is about, mastering on the fly and getting results quickly. So let's jump right into it.
Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under. And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under. And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under. And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same.
Hey, let's go to the side.
Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under. And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. But I only miss you a little bit. And all the lows, they were worth the highs. Am I better now? Yeah, because of it. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. That's on my mind. In my mind. I'm okay, yeah. In my mind. I'm okay, yeah. It was wild and romantic. I could count your freckles and you know my body. But all the while we were damaged, and in the end we never changed. No, I never changed. But I only miss you a little bit. And all the lows, they were worth the highs. Am I better now? Yeah, because of it. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. That's on my mind. In my mind. I'm okay, yeah. 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 Cause I'm mine on the daily. Think about if you're moving on or who you're under. And it's driving me crazy, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. But I only miss you a little bit. And all the lows, they were worth the highs. Am I better now? Yeah, because of it. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. That's on my mind. In my mind. I'm okay, yeah. In my mind. I'm okay, yeah. It was wild and romantic.
I love it. So now let's move on to something a little bit heavier. This track is called Chosen One. It's actually the demonstration track for Disrespect Sauce, and it features the Disrespect Sauce on the vocal, on the synth, and on the 808. And this beat has already been clipped, and then there's vocal production over it, which simulates a very real world situation where you might have purchased a beat, done some vocal production over it, and now you have to master it with Ozone. And this beat was made entirely out of samples from Urban Beats 4, and so they're pretty knockin'. So I'm actually just going to do a little bit additional gain staging and turn this down -1, and let's load up the sauce. And turn bypass off.
I think I'm the chosen one, yeah. About to come like the sun. I'm the chosen one. Gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun.
Now, since I know for sure that this beat has already been limited and then the vocal production went over it, I know I'm probably not going to want this vintage limiter on here, so I'm just going to turn that off first.
Chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one.
Yeah, so there you have it. Not the best when you're running limited audio through the limiter, but when you have a nice dynamic mix like the first two, it is absolutely the sauce. So it's there for when you need it.
Chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was.
And this is already a really distorted beat and vocal because, like I said, Disrespect Sauce is on the synth, the 808, and the vocal in this one. So I'm going to turn the exciter off too because, honestly, that track is already pretty exciting.
One, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up. One, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, that little boost on the mids with the imager is always the sauce. So we're going to leave that on. Let's see what we can do with the dynamics.
Chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah, chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was.
Definitely cleaned up a lot of that low mid or upper sub kind of mud by completely compressing that.
Chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah, chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah, I think I'm the chosen one. Yeah.
Now let's do this.
Chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah, chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. I'm the chosen one, gonna get some. Knew since I was young, I'ma come up like the sun. Yeah, I think I'm the chosen.
Turn this down a little bit more so we don't have to hit that limiter so hard. Hey. Man, and you can't forget to put the sauce on top, the dither. So there you have it. My guide to Ozone Master Sauce. Thank you so much for checking out this preset, and I hope you found all the tips and tricks in this private, exclusive Ozone Master Sauce tutorial useful, and I'll catch you guys next time with another video. Peace out.